What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. I would like to introduce to you my number 5 greatest boxer of all times, and that's Muhammad Ali. But I want to begin with Floyd Patterson of Brooklyn, New York. He would win the 1952 Helsinki Games gold medal in the middleweight division. But also in that 1952 year, Charles Sonny Liston, young man from Arkansas, would win the AAU Heavyweight Championship Tournament, defeating Ed Sanders. Ed Sanders would stop Ingemar Johansson from winning the biggest prize in the amateur division. Well, Floyd Patterson would then turn professional, but in 1952, not only was he the Olympic champion, but he was recognized as the very best in the game. In 1956, Floyd Patterson would become the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history at the age of 21, when he would stop the old Mongols, who at that time was the oldest boxer. He would stop him in 5 rounds. And Floyd Patterson would become the world heavyweight champion. But he would lose his title and then become the first heavyweight champion to regain it from Ingemar Johansson. Where the special fighter was Floyd Patterson. But Floyd Patterson would then give an old acquaintance from the amateur days, Charles Sonny Liston, an opportunity at his heavyweight championship title. And Floyd Patterson's manager, Custy Amato, begged him not to do so. Did it anyway. And Charles Sonny Liston would stop Floyd Patterson in the very first round. Liston would honor the contract by giving Floyd Patterson a return go. And Charles Sonny Liston would once again knock out Floyd Patterson in 1 round. Charles Sonny Liston was born May 8, 1932 in St. Francis County, Arkansas. He would die December 30th, 1970 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Stood 6 foot 1 inch, weighed 218 pounds. As a heavyweight champion, he would reign from September 25th, 1962 to February 25th, 1964. 1 year, 153 days as champion. He would have 4 heavyweight championship title fights, winning 2 and losing 2. Had 54 total contests, 50 wins, 39 knockouts, and 4 losses. But Charles Sonny Liston would run into a small problem. He would run into Cassius Clay, a young man from Louisville, Kentucky, who would win the Rome Games in the Olympics in 1960. He would win the gold medal and as the light heavyweight champion. And Cassius Clay would constantly call out Charles Sonny Liston, calling him the ugly bear. He said he was ugly. And he would eventually get a shot. Ali was born January 17th of 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky. He stood 6 foot 3 inches, weighed 230 pounds. That was his highest weight. He was champion from February 25th, 1964 to April 28th, 1967. Then October 30th of 1974 and February 15th of 1978. And then September 15th, 1978 to June 22nd, 1979. February 25th of 1964, he would become a champion at the age of 22, Miami, Florida. He would defeat Charles Sonny Liston, and he would shock the world. But on April 28th of 1967, he would be stripped of his crown for exercising his conscientious objective for the Vietnam War. On October 30th of 1974, he would gain redemption to the establishment and stopping the mummy, George Foreman. He stopped him in Zaire, Africa. George Foreman would get off the plane with a German Shepherd, biggest mistake of his life. Because the German Shepherds were used to attack the residents in the Congo. And they would come up with a chant, Ali, Boombaye, Ali, kill him. June 22nd, 1979, Ali would retire. Ali's first reign as champion, 3 years and 63 days. Second reign, 3 years and 108 days. His third year. Third reign was 284 days, totaling 7 years and 90 days as heavyweight champion. Would hold the title 25 fights, winning 22, losing 3. Had a record of 61 total bouts, 56 wins, 37 knockouts, and he would lose 5 contests. And all his losses would come to a trainer, Philadelphia. His name was Eddie Futch. Larry Holmes, Leon Spinks, Kenny Norton, and smoking Joe Frazier. Eddie Futch understood how to defeat Ali. One of Ali's opponents was Ernie Terrell. Born April 4th, 1939 in Chicago, Illinois. He stood 6 foot 6 inches, weighed 212 pounds. He would hold the WBA heavyweight championship title March 5th, 1965 to February 6th, 1967. 1 year, 343 days. Ali wanted his title back, and he didn't appreciate Ernie Terrell calling him Cassius Clay. And he told him, when you address me in that ring, you address me as Muhammad Ali. Ernie Terrell couldn't fathom doing so because he knew him as an amateur. And he told him, you told me your name was Clay, which was true. But that was when he was an amateur. Now Ali slapped him, when you can hear it clear across the facility. In the middle of the rounds, and at the end of the rounds, Ali would say, what's my name? He had to go on national television on Howard Cosell's show and apologize. Ernie Terrell had the heavyweight title for 4 fights, winning 3 and losing 1. Had a record of 55 total bouts, 46 wins, 21 knockouts, and 9 losses. Ali would take on smoking Joe Frazier. Frazier was born January 12, 1944 in Beaufort, South Carolina, better known as Black Bottom. Stood 5 foot 11 inches, weighed 217 pounds. He was champion on March 4th, 1968, when he would knock out Buster Mathis Sr. He wasn't in the tournament, but he would soon become the heavyweight champion of the world. January 22nd, 1973, he would be stopped by Big George Foreman. This was in Kingston, Jamaica. Contest didn't last 2 rounds. Joe Frazier was champion 4 years, 324 days. He would participate in 3 mega fights with Ali. The last one would be in 1975. And that would be the Thriller in Manila. But in 1971, March 8th to be exact, Joe Frazier and Ali was considered the fight of the century. Every celebrity, every enthusiast was there. Joe Frazier had 12 heavyweight championship title fights, winning 10, losing 2. He had a record of 37 contests, 32 wins, 27 knockouts. He would have 1 draw with 4 losses. And both his losses were against George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, 2-2. Ali would also take on Jimmy Ellis with NABF heavyweight championship title. Jimmy Ellis was born February 24th of 1940, also in Louisville, Kentucky. He stood 6 foot 1 inch, weighed 201 pounds. He would hold the title from April 27th, 1968, when he would defeat Jerry Quarry for the WBA heavyweight championship strap. That was a tournament that Joe Frazier did not participate in. Had Joe Frazier participated in that tournament, Jimmy Ellis would have never been champion. He lasted to February 16, 1970. He took on Joe Frazier to unify that title. My God, with a left hook, Joe Frazier would land on Jimmy Ellis, knocking him out with a beautiful left hook, my God. Jimmy Ellis would reign 1 year, 295 days. As heavyweight titles he would hold. Fought 3 contests, 2 wins, 1 loss. Had a record of 53 total bouts with 40 wins, 24 knockouts, 1 draw, and 12 losses. Ali would also take on Big George Foreman, who was born January 22nd, 1948, in Marshall, Texas. Big George Foreman would win the 1968 Olympic Games. And what was interesting about George Foreman? He was the most feared fighter after Sonny Liston. He stood 6 foot 3 inches, weighed 224 pounds. He reigned as champion from January 22nd, 1973, knocking out Joe Frazier. To October 30th, 1974, where he himself would be knocked out in 8 rounds by Muhammad Ali. He reigned 1 year, 281 days as heavyweight champion. He had 4 title bouts, winning 3, losing 1. And had a record of 49 total bouts, 47 wins, 44 knockouts, and 2 losses in his first reign as heavyweight champion. Another man who Muhammad Ali would defeat and face was Leon Spinks, born July 11th, 1953 in St. Louis, Missouri. Leon Spinks would have a son, Corey Spinks, who would become a unified, undisputed welterweight champion, losing his title to Zab Judah of Brooklyn, New York. Leon Spinks stood 6 foot 1 inch, weighed 201 pounds, and would win the gold medal in the 1976 Olympic Games. As a professional, he would hold the title from February 15, 1978 to September 15, 1978. He would win and lose that title to Muhammad Ali, but the WBC title would be up for grabs. And as I stated, Larry Holmes and Kenny Norton would fight for that title, one of the greatest heavyweight championship bouts of all times. Leon Spinks would reign 212 days as heavyweight champion. He would have 3 bouts as champion, winning 1, losing 2. His career would be 27 contests, 17 wins, 11 knockouts, 2 draws, and 8 losses. Kenny Norton would take on Ali 3 separate occasions. He was born August 9th, 1943 in Jacksonville, Illinois. He stood 6 foot 3 inches, weighed 220 pounds. He would reign from March 29th, 1978 to from June 9th, 1978. Thinking of something else. He would never win the title, but he proclaimed it. Championship title was the WBC. 72 days. As heavyweight champion, as a claimant. He had 3 contests, and he lost all 3. With Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes. He had 50 contests, 42 wins, 33 knockouts, 1 draw, and 7 losses. The last man that Muhammad Ali would face as championship rounds, if you will. Because Ali had released the title in 79, but he tried to go back and win another title. That was the WBC Heavyweight Championship title. Larry Holmes was born November 3rd, 1949, in Cuthbert, Georgia. He would relocate to Pennsylvania. He stood 6 foot 3.5 inches, weighed 223 pounds. He would reign as champion from June 9th, 1978 to September 21st, 1985. He would reign 7 years, 104 days as champion. The biggest mistake of Larry Holmes' career is when he stated, "My understanding, the judges get drunk before the judge fights." What he was talking about, Don King used to get judges and referees and others and promoters in a restaurant. They would have dinner and they would have drinks. Larry Holmes knew that because there was a time where he was at that dinner. And when the system was against him, he would begin to speak. And when Michael Spinks, was given the verdict, they did not want Larry Holmes to break Rocky Marciano's 49-0 record. So in my opinion, they robbed him. And it made it worse when he fought Spinks the second time. Michael Spinks had vomited water. He was dehydrated. Larry Holmes defeated Michael Spinks, but once again, because of a comment that Larry Holmes would make. He said, "Rocky Marciano couldn't carry my jockstrap." Since we're on HBO, that's my big black behind. Kiss with the sun don't shine. Larry Holmes had 23 bouts in his first reign as champion. Would win 21, lose 2. He had 50 total contests, 48 wins, 34 knockouts, and he would lose 2. And they were both to Michael Spinks. Muhammad Ali, one of the greatest fighters of all times. He was some humanitarian. He had his faults. But he was a young man coming up at a time when the civil rights movement would give him a helping hand. You see, Muhammad Ali, in my opinion, could never last in the era of Joe Louis because he didn't have the personality to deal with what Joe Louis had to deal with. Ali came around at the perfect time to speak truth to power, to let the establishment know that he and others who look like him were just as equal, and in some cases better. Better in a way where he could show examples, passing the torch of what humanity should be like. Whether it was going to another country and getting hostages released, or talking a young man down from a ledge, willing to commit suicide. Ali was the people's champion, and he was a hell of a boxer. He wanted Sugar Ray Robinson to manage him. He was at war with Robinson. Wanted to dress like him. Wanted to box like him. But he was something else. He would show up in a bus at Sonny Liston's house. He would show up at the gym with carrots stating that Floyd Patterson was the rabbit. He would bring a mop to a gymnasium stating George Foreman was the washerwoman and George Foreman was the mummy. He would bring a gorilla to the gym with Joe Frazier, and he would bounce that gorilla around, stating that you are a gorilla. There were some dark sides of Ali. That was one of them. Ali didn't understand that the establishment was trying to get Joe Frazier and him to separate the communities. Ali wanted to exercise his conscientious objection to the Vietnam War. That was his right. But the establishment didn't take too kind to that, so they would strip him of his title, take his passport away, tried to put him in jail. One of the things I admired Howard Cosell, he stood by Ali. But Ali had a request of Joe Frazier, because Joe Frazier was invited to come down to the White House. And Ali asked Joe Frazier, do me one favor. Would you have Richard Nixon look into my case of getting my license again so you and I can get it on? And you let him know about our people. While he was watching the news at home on television, and he saw Richard Nixon put the arm around the mother of Joe Frazier. And at that point, Ali no longer had respect for Joe Frazier. He considered him an Uncle Tom. Joe Frazier said, I don't peep through no windows. Ali said, that's a peeping Tom. Joe Frazier, who meant no harm, who wanted justice for everyone, was caught in the middle of where Ali was trying to get justice. Joe Frazier already thought he had it. Joe Frazier had a son, so he was not drafted into the war. Ali didn't have a son, so he was drafted and refused to step forward. There were many of young white men who would fly to Canada, who would hide. Ali stood up on his own 2 feet and stated that he does not fight any war that does not concern his people. He said the Viet Congs never called him the N-word. That would cause problems. But Ali was right. That war was unjustified, in my opinion. But there are times when you have to go to war. And Ali said, when the time comes, I'll be the first to die. He was a patriot. He was a patriot not only of his people, but of fairness and truth and opportunity. Muhammad Ali had a daughter from Veronica Portion. His name was Layla Ali. She became a boxer. And she was a damn good one. I had the pleasure of meeting Muhammad Ali several times. And he always embraced me with a firm handshake and a smile. Ali fought everyone in his era. So how can you not consider him in the top 5? That's where I have him. Number 5. Thanks for listening. You've now heard my top 10 greatest boxers of all times. To recap, Sam Langford, Harry Greb, Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, Muhammad Ali, Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, tied for 9. Tony Canzoneri, Benny Leonard, Johnny Dundee. In the history of the black boxers. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed these videos. That's how I feel about this game. When you look at fighters such as Charlie Burley, Sam Langford, men who were totally avoided. When you look at Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, and marvelous Marvin Hagler, one of the most unappreciated middleweight champions of all times. You had Emil Griffith. You had fighters like Buddy McGirt, Roy Jones. When you take it back to Billy Sweet Pea Peacock and Dave Holly, Larry Temple was the creator of the Bolo Punch. Harold Johnson, who had an orange injected with drugs that caused him to have problems with his back locked up. His father, Phil Johnson, both were knocked out in the third round. Both back would lock up on him. Both of them would face and be stopped by Jersey Joe Walcott. When you listen to stories of men who were climbing the ring ropes only to find out that if they won, they would be assassinated. And at the same time, if they lost, they would be assassinated. And they would be trapped in the ring ropes and couldn't get out. Men with horses on either side of the ring with shotguns on them and only them as they're fighting. When Jack Johnson would go to his grave stating that he had to take a dive in the 26th round against Jess Willard for the government. Whether that's his story or the truth, that was his belief and that was his understanding. When you look at fighters like Iran the Blade Barkley, who was hit while he was down against Nigel Benn. When you look at fighters like Thomas the Hitman Hearns, who'd be knocked out by Iran the Blade Barkley, losing his middleweight championship crown and losing his light heavyweight championship crown from the same man, that makes you see what this game is truly about. You never know until you fight the best. That's the only way you'll understand who you really are. I have a son, his name is Pops. He's in wrestling. I couldn't be more proud. He takes the challenge. He volunteers for the team to fight in 2 weight classes higher than him to get the job done. 84, 4 losses. 80 wins. Holds national titles. Only been wrestling for 3 years. Has medals all over his room and trophies bigger than him. That's what it takes. If you can punch, the key is can you take a punch? Not only on the jaw, in the ring, but can you take one in life? When you master the game of boxing, you'll master the game of life. Thanks for listening. And I hope you enjoyed this series. Be well. I want to thank a few people before I end this video. BL, Random Custom Thoughts, 86 Boxing, my brother Curtis Anderson, my brother Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the Drew. There are many that I want to thank. Blood Boxing, my sister Lala D, Fistiana, many who help inspire me to continue. I've often told you about my dad, who got me into this game at the age of 7. The first fight that I ever went to was in Inglewood, California. And I watched Alexis Arguello knock out Ruben Oliveras for the WBC title. 13 rounds. I'm in the second row. On television, my first bout that I have watched was Alexis Arguello when he took on a fighter from Panama. I've seen Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns ringside. Both fights. I've watched Roberto Duran and Ray Leonard in New Orleans in the second row. I've watched Wilfredo Gomez, Salvador Sanchez in the second row in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've watched Bazooka Limon and Bobby Chacon, second row. I've watched Alexis Arguello and Aaron Pryor, second row. I remember at the Philadelphia Spectrum, 1978. I believe in one video I said 76. But in 1978, when Marvelous Marvin Hagler would take on Bad Benny Briscoe, and he would pull down a microphone and call out Ronnie Harris, 1968 Olympian. That same year, at the Philadelphia Spectrum, I would watch a fighter fight in 8 rounds. It was one of the greatest rounds of all times. Victor Galindez, Matthew Saad Muhammad. My God. I was in the second row of that contest. And I would see police officers give high fives to the popcorn vendors as they would just grab the popcorn and eat themselves. I remember hugging an older woman never met before with such joy. When I watched Thomas Hearns get stopped in 3 rounds, it was Marvelous Marvin Hagler in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. I was at the Garden when Kevin Kelly would be stopped by Prince Nassim Hamed. The same card, Poison Jr. Jones and Kenny McKinley. I was in the second row with Vander Holyfield when he lost for the first time against Big Daddy Bo. Riddick Bowe was known as Sugar Bear. Those in New York know that. And I used to watch him train in Gleason's gym when it was on 75 Front Street, before it moved to 77 Front Street. They just moved the door from the front of the building to the back, the exit door. Trainers like Victor Valley and Edwin Virouette. Oh, I'm Scrapbook Boxing. I'll talk to you more about that another time. I can talk boxing for days. Be well. Peace.